All right, today is June 8, 2018. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes CSI implementation group. So let's get started on the agenda. First up are PRs that need attention. So we left off with a PR from Sergey adding CSI driver registration with plugin watcher. There was some open discussion about this, about what approach we should be taking. We agreed that we're going to have a separate meeting to discuss this. So immediately after this meeting today, in 25 minutes, we're going to hold another meeting on the same channel to discuss this issue. Since Luis is not here, I'm going to skip over the repo reorganization work. I've been opening a bunch of issues on various components, external provisioner, external attacher, etc. So I'm actually having second thoughts on this. And now that I have Jan here, I think let me get your thoughts on this, Jan. So the proposal here is the various sidecar containers. We have them in 3 different repos today: external provisioner, external attacher, and driver registrar. And the proposal here is to pull them all together into a single repo and also package the host path volume plugin inside that single repo. Do you have any thoughts on that?
What is the benefit of this?
What's that?
Sorry. What is the benefit of this?
So I think the proponents of it are Luis and I forget who the other person was, but I think their argument is that it makes it easier to fix bugs that apply to all 3 sidecar containers. And I think what they're saying is that for a number of the recent bugs that we've had to basically fix the same bug in 3 different places. And if we had all of them in a single repository, they could easily share libraries, and so we don't have to fix it in 3 different places.
Are there any libraries to share, actually? There is not much.
That was my understanding. I'm not sure what the shared code is where these bugs exist.
Yeah, but CSI common, it's imported by pretty much every single piece, because the gRPC functions are sitting there, and the external provisioner and the attacher, they all use that.
CSI common is already in an independent repo, right? So if somebody fixes a bug in CSI common, then you just need to go in and update the existing repos to pick up a new version of CSI common.
The other thing is, if we have all 3 components all in the same repo, does that mean their release schedules get tied together? Can we still release them independently?
I think the releases can be independent. I asked Luis about that, and his suggestion was that you can still cut separate containers, just like Kubernetes cuts separate binaries. Theoretically, they could be on a different schedule, but ideally it would be nice to have them on the same schedule, the same version.
Okay.
Okay, I can see some benefit of having one common code for CSI library talking to CSI driver, because now it's copied from attacher to the provisioner. I don't like that. But that's about it. These 2 controllers will be separate. And there is very little to share with CSI registrar, I think.
Yeah. And I think the part that I don't fully understand is because the common code already exists in a common location in a separate repo, why can't we just use any fixes that happen in that common repo should become available in other repos as well?
But the CSI common code sits in the drivers.
CSI common code sits in the drivers, but the drivers imported from somewhere, right?
No, they are imported. like if you look at the drivers, I think there's a folder called CSI common. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's code for the drivers, not for the sidecar containers, right?
Right. And the proposal is not to combine the drivers. The proposal is to combine the sidecar containers. So specifically the external attacher, the driver registrar, and the external provisioner, put them all into a single repo. I think maybe it would be better to have this discussion with Luis present. Probably have a better argument than.
Saad, can you hear me? I don't know. So
Yes, Samant.
yeah, so I was saying that we had this proposal of adding a resource name for the volume limits, right? And then and that will be applied by the provisioner when it provisions the PV, and similar thing has to be set in the node side as well. So if all the code is in one place, it's easier to set those values and basically configure all the plugins to have one value. But it's like
instead of 3 different PRs, you could do a single PR.
Yeah, exactly. So I can see some value in having in one place, but
Does anybody have a strong opinion one way or the other?
I don't have a strong opinion, but just something else to throw out there is that like the reviewers and the approvers for all 3 of these are probably very similar, if not the same people. So it might make sense to put them in the same place just so, and like it's not like it increases the burden on anyone reviewing to like have to look at all 3 of them, because we're all looking at all 3 of them anyway, because they're very tightly coupled.
Okay. All right, let's continue that discussion once Luis is here. But it sounds like there's nobody who strongly disagrees, and there's some benefit to being able to have them in the same repo. There's probably some drawbacks as well, because we are splitting out the external storage repo because it's becoming so painful. So it's a trade-off.
Just a comment regarding that. If we have one common repo for all the sidecar containers, I would strongly suggest to have common releases. Otherwise, it gets crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
It's okay to update just one component and release everything, but it should have the same version numbers and releases and tags.
Right. Okay, let's keep moving. We don't have that much time left. So Luis has a few tasks remaining. So this has been merged. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And then there's a new PR added for kubelet can't delete access PVs of deleted pods. I will take a look at this one. Is this a new issue?
I hope that Vladimir is here. Yeah, it's a new PR. I created it yesterday and today. One question regarding that. I look at end-to-end tests of CSI, and it looks to me that it just does provisioning and nothing else. Am I looking at the wrong place, or?
I think you're looking at the right place. When I looked at it with Michelle, we kind of had the same question. The host path code, the CSI host path test It looks like it just does provisioning. Sergey, do you know better?
It does it.
I think we did a copy of the file, like we attach the volume, copy file, then disconnect it, reattach it, and then check the content of the file. At least last time I checked.
Are you talking about the
Okay, I will look somewhere.
Yeah, it's called test dynamic provisioning. The test itself does exactly what Sergey says.
Okay, I will look there.
Patches, mounts, copies a file, and reads it as well.
Okay, so I will reuse this and write end-to-end test for this.
Okay.
PV.
So it sounds like it's just mislabeled.
It's in a different file. There is a file called CSI something. So I looked there, but there is nothing.
Is this now ready for review, or do you want me to wait for a little bit?
It's ready for review.
Okay, I'll take a look at it. Next up are bugs that need attention. So the CSI gRPC stuff is already merged. We had a couple of issues around attacher timeout and external provisioner timeout. For the first one, both of these were assigned to Shubhekshah, but I have not heard from her for a while. The first one, I think Sergey and Shubhekshah looked at it, and they indicated that this issue may no longer be a problem. I synced up with Chris again to try and discuss what the problem is, and ended up opening up a couple of issues that I added to the bottom. In particular, the external provisioner currently issues delete calls between retries if the creation of the PV object fails. So if the volume is created, but the Kube API server is rejecting the creation of the PV object to represent it, maybe because of throttling, we go ahead and delete the volume. And then when we come back again, we try again to create the volume. And then if the API server is still throttling, we delete it. So we're kind of, thrashing back and forth. Sergey mentioned that this is probably the right behavior, which I think I agree with. But there is a bug in this code that needs to be fixed. In particular, after we delete the object successfully, no error is returned, even though the creation failed. So this code causes the binding to succeed, even though the binding failed. So we need to fix that bug. So minimum fix bug where we do not return error if PV is PV creation fails and volume is deleted. Sergey, are you interested in working on that? It looked like you had some comments on it.
Yeah, definitely. I could look into it.
Yeah, that bug fix should be pretty easy.
Yeah.
And then the other issue around this was a scaling issue. So basically what's happening, Chris is creating 100 new PVCs requesting volume provisioning all at the same time. And our code does no, throttling at all. It just opens up a ton of connections against the Kube API server, and the Kube API server begins to throttle us. And what happens is that ultimately something like 2 of the 100 PVs are created after 30 minutes. So we need to add some logic to be able to handle this more gracefully. And the suggestion is to create some sort of worker pool so that no more than n operations can be carried out against the API server at once. And we can make this value configurable as a flag on the external provisioner binaries. Then also consider incorporating the Kubernetes informer cache in the sidecar container so that the reads and writes are optimized. Today, all the reads and writes happen directly against the API server. If we could use an informer, that might also help a little bit.
I think the major problem is in the the provisioner is that it uses leader election per PVC. So if a new PVC appears, then each provisioner running in the cluster tries to write an annotation that it's trying to be a leader, and all of them try it at the same time. And if this is not successful, they will try again after some short timeout, a couple of seconds. So I think that's the major source of writes and reads from API server. You can't do it with informers. And in the attacher, I don't use this leader election. I have one leader for whole cluster. On the other hand, the provisioner has bigger throughput because if I have many provisioners running in the cluster, each of them could be active on different PVCs, could be a leader of different PVCs, so all of them can do something. But in the attacher, I have just one leader for whole cluster, and only one attacher is doing something, and the others just are sleeping. Maybe if we could tune somehow this leader election, I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds like a good place to focus our initial energy then. So we should focus on making leader election scalable.
Mm.
This is probably a bigger project than just a bug fix. Is anybody interested in working on it now? If not, I can add it as a work item for the next quarter.
There could be a quick solution to turn off this redirection and have just a normal redirection at the startup of provisioner. Configurable if you want redirection per PVC or per provisioner.
So what will you use for electing the leader in that case? What did you use in attacher?
It's usually a config map.
Okay.
In the same namespace as the provisioner.
That could work.
Yeah, the attachers, they create an config map, empty config map, and put some annotation about who is the current leader.
Okay, so let's, Jan, are you interested in working on this right now, or?
Well, I am interested, but I'm pretty busy with the other stuff.
That's okay. So I think what I'll do is I'll put this on the list for the next quarter. And in the meantime, if anybody's interested in working on it, feel free to jump on it. If not, we'll see if we can get somebody to own it for the next quarter. So status, looking for an owner. If otherwise, we'll make this a task for Q3. All right, cool.
So if it's not urgent, I mean, I would be interested in looking into it in Q3.
Sure, yeah.
Not right away.
That is perfectly fine. When we do assignments for Q3, we can look at that.
Cool.
So I'm gonna scratch out this external provisioner item since it was not very well defined. And then Shubhekshah had a PR out for attacher timeouts. Let's see if we can ping her.
It needs test, unit test. That's all that is missing. Well, or that's the majority of the work.
Okay. And then external attacher returns true when possible when a volume is still attached. Sergey, did you get approval on this? Yes, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Next up is items for Q2. What we can do is split out, let's say, post code freeze tasks for 1.11. And that is updating internal documentation, which Luis is working on. Updating Kubernetes internal to pick up 0.3. Can you confirm that that's completed, David?
Sorry?
Updating the Kubernetes internals to pick up CSI 03?
Yeah, that's done.
Okay. And that merged, everything's green.
Yeah, do you want me to link the PR then?
Sure. Update the sidecar containers to pick up CSI 0.3. Is anybody interested in working on that? Should be a fairly easy change. It'll just require updating the dependency for the sidecar containers, and there are no functional changes as far as I can tell, but there may be, so you'll have to take a look.
Well, since I have a workspace for external provisioner, I can update that one.
Okay, so we can break this task out into 3 and say external provisioner.
And registrar, since it's, again, in the same area.
Yep. Driver registrar. We'll give you the 2. This one, you wanted external provisioner and the driver registrar. Okay. Does anybody want to update the external attacher? Okay, we'll leave that unassigned for now, and then we'll come back to that. And anybody interested in updating CSI Sanity for 0.3 or the mock drivers? Or the CSI drivers? All right, we'll leave those unassigned for now. Is Vlad with us today? It doesn't look like he is. There's still work ongoing for block volume support. I think Vlad's just taking a look at bugs. And then for the kubelet device plugin registration, let me update the... There are a few tasks that are remaining. Update the driver registrar. We're going to have a meeting about that in 3 minutes. Document the new behavior and end-to-end testing. So we'll keep those tasks here and update them as we go through this. Currently, Sergey is working on this, so I'll put his name down. And then block volume support. Okay, and then this is Vlad. For the unassigned ones, we can clear those since nobody's working on them yet. All right. Let's see if there's any other tasks here. So we can go ahead and mark this green because the entry component of this merged. Kubernetes CSI implementation of topology. I think Chang can give us an update on that at some point, just kind of a design overview. Kubelet device plugin integration work is done. Driver registrar labeling logic has been completed as well. Thank you to Sergey. Finding a permanent home for unowned important drivers. Brad has been working on that. I think that's going to remain an ongoing task into the next quarter. Design entry volume migration. I think the design is looking good, and David's updated the links there. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that green for this quarter.
Hasn't merged yet, but
Okay.
it's getting there.
Flex volume adapters need to be updated for 0.2. I'm just going to go ahead and say that that's completed because we already have to do the same thing with these drivers, updating them to 0.3. So that's a new task that we're tracking up above. Liveness probe, release branch, and versioning needed. I don't think anybody got to that, so I'm going to go ahead and scratch it, and we can pick it up next quarter. In the meantime, if anyone's interested in working on that, feel free. Dynamic max volume count. This was a PR that Haman started. We'll pick this up next quarter. And verification stuff, be able to handle ephemeral volumes, be able to handle local persistent volumes. We didn't get any traction on any of those. These were mostly just verification tasks to see that the CSI implementation that we have today is flexible enough to handle different types of volume plugins. Can we get rid of the external attacher requirement? Also nice to have that we didn't get to. How to integrate CSI calls, including list volumes. So let's go ahead and scratch those. And I think that pretty much closes out the quarter. All right, I think that's pretty much all I had for this meeting. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about? If not, we'll go ahead and start the next meeting. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording on this, and we can kick off the next meeting.